the Dank Swamp Rebellion. This is part 2 of the Cajun Craftastrophe, TNus. It's never too late to change.
Hey, what's up? How are ya? It's your best friend Daniel Mary. You normally know me from Alt 92.3, but you know what got me started in radio? I started a local music-based company called Give It Hell Promotions, and one of my dreams was to, create a beer with a local brewery. It actually happened. Gnarly Barley in Hammond, Louisiana. They're releasing the Give It Hellas lager. I'm very excited. It's pretty much my tears of joy mixed in with the beer. So July 31st at the Gnarly Barley Brewery in Hammond. We got some live music starting at 3. Pale Shelter, Eat the Witch, Sunrise, Sunset. There's going to be Fat Jose's taco truck there. And oh yeah, the Give It Hellas lager. I'm very excited. And look, if you go, be sure to let the Dank Swamp Rebellion guys know, and they'll relay it to me, and we'll hang out, man. High five and handshake, whatever you want to do. And maybe you can talk the Dank Swamp Rebellion guys into coming as well. Leave the bayou for a little bit and go to a different bayou, the Hammond Bayou. Gnarly Barley Brewing, July 31st. Come drink some beer, listen to some music, and just hang out, man.
So let's give it hell. We both we've been following you since you were had even less followers. When you first got started.
Yeah, I had 3. I think it was Cody, it was Tyler, and some I think my mom.
Mia. But
that's okay.
The way you taking the channel, TNus, is basically exactly how it needs to go, because you feel that free form of direction. And especially if you're watching from the first videos too, you could see how it's evolving in the content itself, even though you're not necessarily addressing how it's evolving. It's just
or
there.
Even necessarily might not even recognize that it's evolving in that way, because it's always cool to see how people, what their perspective is of what you're doing, right? And so to see just the way your character has changed, very slightly, but you're polishing certain things that can be seen, and everything that you put out, man. You feel the love in everything you do, because we sit there and say, how the heck does this guy have time to make these? It's pretty labor intense. I mean, I hate to say labor intensive but it is a labor of love, because you could do all this just for your own personal gain, but you've made it into this thing, right? That is amazing for people, that not just is entertaining, like you said, but it's infotaining, because people can sit there and watch this and learn something at the same time, which I think is probably the best thing out there.
I've curated all my content that I watch now down to an artistic process. Basically, the stuff that I watch now on YouTube is exactly the format of infotaining, because I love to know the journey of how they got to this point and then see that result at the end. And like you said, sometimes that journey is a lot more important than the end result. It lets me feel like I could get inside the artist's head on why they arrived here, or what background or what technical side did they have to learn to get to this point to translate and tell this story. And that's why I loved the series with Space Rabbit, able to see how that happened and what goes through TNus' head to get there is really special. It's very vulnerable too. There's a lot of what we're doing in general as content creators that's extremely vulnerable, that we're putting ourselves out there, and the fan base that's there could literally be one person, and it would still be worth every second of putting it into it, because you could still get that picture of, hey, look what I tried on Instagram.
Oh, absolutely. And that's very well put. And it's interesting too that like the format of just the platform of YouTube is interesting in that you can go back and look at a creator and you can see an evolution. And some people, the evolution is very, very dramatic, like where it starts out rough. and then it gets more and more clean as they go. And like I early on learned that, like, well, if you decide on the way that your show is gonna go and you start doing it, and like, I was very thankful that there wasn't a lot of people watching it first, because it allowed me to just kind of shimmy along and find something that I was more interested in and really liked for myself. But anyway, it's a process. I didn't want to get locked into one thing and say, well, this is what I'm doing now, and like, people like it, so I can't change. And as much as possible, I want to keep that in my heart, because I want to keep evolving into something, and hopefully, you gotta always be careful, like, you don't alienate your audience. You don't want to,
right?
I can't suddenly turn into teaching guitar.
It's a
channel,
balance. It's
what
definitely
I mean?
a
Because
balance.
people would be, anybody who did crafts would be like, hey, what are you doing?
We labeled that as our seasons. So season 1 for DSR has been exactly what it needed to be. It was an outlet that we had a podcast now, and we were really angry because it was all during COVID time, and we were working front lines.
What is this COVID thing?
Oh yeah,
I haven't heard of it.
You smelled it yet?
Oh, it smells. I smell something.
It smells like bupuri.
Oh, but yeah, there you go. Or the, what do I forget the word when you burn your hair? Griller? No, is it?
When you griller something, that's
Not burning? No. I said when you burn your hair. No. Anyway,
there's a thing.
Stinks. Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. I know what COVID is.
Yeah,
everybody. I got
TNus,
9 shots. I'm fine.
all at the same time, huh?
All at once. I felt not so good for about 2 hours, and then I was all right.
A few months ago, you were featured on YouTube as like the newest upcoming creative on there. So, how did you feel when you were notified of that?
Well, I felt like I arrived.
So did we. I'm like, yeah, dude, got it, man.
No,
All deserving.
It was absolutely weird, and at the same time, it was very strange. Like, YouTube, they don't give you much choice.
Like, how did they contact you?
Via email, and not asking, just saying. Like,
this is happening.
They're like, oh, by the way, you're
Yeah. Yeah, this is happening. Prepare to have a bunch of people go to your channel. And the thing that I didn't like about it, I mean, I love the fact that they did it. That's amazing. I mean, I'm very thank you, Mr. YouTube. I love it. But the thing that was, they have. Okay, so for people out there, I do like these videos, and then every once in a while I'll do a little video that just shows something technical, and what I do is I just put a link in there. And this is not a video that, like, I'm saying like, hey, this is the best thing I can do at the moment. It's a video so that it sits there, so I don't have to explain something over and over and over again. So in other words, let's say this is how you drill a screw into a piece of wood. It's like, well, if I showed that every time and explain that every time, people are gonna unsubscribe, and I probably would unsubscribe. So anyway, back to my point is that what they did is they had one video that I was like, okay, this is a good one to promote. But then the other 2 thumbnails that were up there going out to the rest of the world were just 2 of these little explainer videos. So it really didn't make much sense. So a lot of people, I think, saw those and were like, what is this? It didn't even make sense out of context. And I guess that's just growing pains of learning a new platform or whatever, of something I wasn't fully prepared for. But like, yeah, I on one video I got like 64,000 views, and for me that's crazy.
That's phenomenal. Yeah.
That's crazy town. But I think a lot of those people who watched that were just like, what is this? So anyway, because it could be anybody. That's just a shotgun effect they're doing.
Your show reminds me of so many things from my childhood. One, it triggers off Pee-wee's Playhouse. It gives me a big feel of that.
That's a good thing.
I love that. It also gives me I don't know why, but it gives me the feel of the old Nickelodeon show. You can't do that on television.
Oh wow, yeah.
But if you cleaned it up completely,
I never made that connection. That's true.
I think it's because of the wordplay that you use. That is, and and as a songwriter and lyricist, I sit there at work sometimes because I go to work pretty early in the morning. I have my MacBook set up and I'm watching you, and you'll say just something little that I think most people around the country wouldn't maybe even identify with, but because I'm from the Bayou, you know, kind of get the little digs here and there, and it's your wordplay and the way you write your content is what I give you the most props for out of anything, because that's a big thing for me. I love well-written things, because there's so many things out there that people just, I wrote this in 5 minutes and I put this together.
I can tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
Well, I mean, that's, if you're gonna spend a lot of time on something, right? I mean, it goes back to the analogy of the building. Let's just make it easy. If you don't lay a good foundation, you got a bad building. Well, the same thing is writing when you're dealing with any creative arts, and even your show. It's like if you don't have an idea with you, I mean, I know you guys are kind of doing a free form thing and letting the conversation evolve naturally, but at the same time, you still have to have the reins to know where to bring it and steer it, and a lot of people don't think about that, you know, that
Right.
you guys are doing that, but it's obvious that you guys are doing that, or it would just be a mess.
Right.
You know?
Correct.
So,
And not to mention my superb editing skills.
fantastic, fantastic. This guy Brian, he's the best, the best audio editor. Yeah, I know you heard that from me, Tino.
Speaking of, what is the thing you like in crafting and making your videos? What is the thing you like to do the most? Because with me, more than and I'm not, and don't get offense to this, Tino. I'm not saying I don't like hanging out with you.
I'm offended
Okay,
already.
well, I'm glad, because that's what we're about.
Okay, no, I'm just joking.
But I
everybody.
like doing the show, but they think I'm weird because I really like editing audio and
It's so
engineering
weird.
the audio. So I'll sit here for hours and hours and hours playing a Nintendo Switch, playing Mario Party.
That's
while
his
I'm
ritual.
editing. That's my ritual. I'll play like 60-something thousand hours at this point of Mario Party.
I'm so happy.
Wait, you play a video game and
And at the same, I know it's because my mind is going, so I have to sit there and keep going.
That's that's a first for me. I've never heard this. Okay,
We're as unorthodox
I've also,
as the interviews.
okay.
I've also written full-on songs for our guests with an acoustic guitar while editing audio for our show.
Nice.
So I don't know how it works, but it just does. But that's the part I love the most. And I know you like making your little binoms and all that, but what's the part you like? Is it the video editing process? Is it adding the effects? Or is it just the end result?
That's a good question. I really do enjoy coming up with funny concepts, or what we hope is going to be funny concepts, and trying to make myself laugh. And if I can make myself laugh, then it's a good thing. So I like that part of it. And to be honest, I like. This is kind of stupid, but I like every part of it. Okay, so let's get past that. That's just my pat answer. But the what's difficult about it, I'll tell you, is that I didn't realize how hard it is to film yourself and do stuff at the same time. Now, like actually crafting, because a lot of times I realized after I started this channel that you know, when you're filming, and I'm doing a visual thing right now.
Visual representation on audio.
Yeah, on an audio podcast. So put your
Close
seatbelt
your
on.
eyes, listeners, and imagine.
Not if you're driving.
That's right. Not if you're driving, but
Or flying a plane.
but put your seatbelt on if you're driving, and because things are about to get bumpy. But basically, what was I talking about?
About videoing yourself.
Oh,
How you do it so well.
okay. Thank you. See,
Because you used to not
good.
do it so well.
See, he can bring it right back. That's what we were talking about. So yeah, like a lot of times what I would do when I was crafting on details and stuff, man, I hold that close to me. I hold it real close to my face, and I get right up into the detail. But when you're filming, that's not happening. So you're way out here, and then sometimes I even have to hold my hand in an awkward position to draw something or paint something so I can show the audience. And to be honest, it makes it a little more sloppy, and I've started to learn to just embrace that. And also, the crafting itself is there are crafters on YouTube that blow my mind. They are amazing. And my level of crafting is higher if I just do that. If I'm just doing a sculpture and I can spend 3 weeks on a sculpture, I can do as much detail as I want and have fun with it and make it something there where like, oh, you could look at it for a while. But to me, the thing that's happening is that the entire video at the end is the craft. That's it. That's the finish thing.
That's the icing on the cake.
Well, it's the whole thing. So like,
It's the bigano and the gumbo.
There you go. That's my favorite bowl with a Corona.
You like that? You like a bigano gumbo?
I don't do the gumbo so much.
But just balled up biganos just straight up?
I used to love that. I haven't
Pop them right out the snail shell.
I haven't had that in a long time.
I like how your little worm guy that died or didn't die, as your daddy
He did
said.
not die, yeah.
I like how he looks like a bigano out of his shell.
There you go. You gotta, yeah. If you find a bigano that's that particular shade of green, do not eat it.
When he comes back in the next little series, part 2, have him all burnt up to where he looks like a crispy bigano.
Yeah. No doubt. I'm glad you like the worm.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
And at the end of that one, boy, I was so close to the deadline on that particular video that I almost had to cut that out. And if it hadn't been for my daddy saying that he comes back at the end, because I had always planned that, I just wouldn't have. But I just stayed up until real late in the night and got that finished and was like, okay.
It's worth it. It's worth it at this point for sure. That's really good though. Like, cause I feel like people that are in the Craftyverse are going to know that the video itself is the entire creation, because you're practicing more than one art form at the same time, like this video production, the audio production side. The actual crafting is not just what's happening in front of you on screen. And I think a lot of people appreciate that about your content, because it's so much further than what you're just watching in the moment.
It's very easy to think that things like that go unnoticed. Same thing with us. It wasn't until the first person came up to us and said, man, your show sounds really, really good all of a sudden. And we realized that, putting more and more into it over the years that we've done, because on air, we've been on air probably about a year and a half. Together, we went through 6 months of test mode before we even put out our first episode, so we went through a lot of growing pains with that. But overall, just know that it doesn't go unnoticed by other creatives. Everybody sees the detail that gets put in, my friend. And it's appreciated. It really is.
Thank you. I gotta say, and this is a shout out to anybody who's already watching my channel or subscribed to my channel. These guys are the coolest internet group of people I have ever come across. They are the kindest, nicest, and I don't know if it's because they just they know they're gonna hurt my feelings, so
I don't know.
They give nice comments, but boy, they really do.
That's one thing. We are very selective on the talent, though. Also, I'm not saying that everybody's talent doesn't have its place, but I do feel like there are people out there that need to understand that their talent has to get to a certain point of honing before it's worth what you think it's worth as far as monetarily, and that's just where we are. It's nice that the bands that come through and the artists that come through and the creatives that come through, and they actually have something that's incredible, that's out of this world, and the thing that you're doing is so unique. That's what's great about it. It's like nobody's doing that, man. And I know they have other ones out there. Look, CrafsMan is awesome, man. I love that cat stuff. And I'm not saying it's not phenomenal. His stuff's different. Your stuff's different. It's that you have something so different. You've taken a craft channel and turned it into a story. Right? And that's the coolest thing about it. And not just kids. I mean, we're grown men. We watch this. I sent it to my wife. She goes, "Oh, his voice is so creepy."
That's what I was trying for. Thank you, Mrs. Michael. What's your name?
So yeah, it works out awesome.
Really quickly, can I about people and the level of crafting that they at. So I had I went through a phase, and like, I know a lot of people, and I've been around arts and stuff all my life, and then, some people they see something and they're like, man, look at that. That is just not good. And I'm using some real nice words. They did not say this is not good. They said something a little more intense. But and I used to be that way too. And I be real judgmental about stuff, and that's true. And just so you know, I'm not going, like, your point is absolutely correct. Before you start really pushing and selling, and yes, you have to get
something together.
You have to get yourself honed and try to, like, and that's a never-ending process. But so people send me a lot of pictures of their crafts stuff, and these are various levels. Some guys that send me their crafts, I just shrink, because I'm like, oh my god, this guy, why is he even showing me? Because he's so good that, like, why you don't need my opinion, like, he's amazing, and other people, they're at a different level. But what I learned is that every time someone shows you something like that, you are seeing their dream. That is their dream that they're showing you. Like, that's the thing that they love,
right,
the most. And so for me, it's trying to remember to never forget that, or like push that off and say, like,
well, it's knowing the responsibility to those people, though, and that's where we're at, that we had to learn also. It's to understand that not telling them in the proper way that they need to work on something is doing them an injustice, because I don't want to lie to you and say that it's fair, okay. Yeah. But I would also, like, for instance, in music, all right, because that's kind of where we're at. That's what we do. I can feel comfortable telling someone, look, I have artists that come in here all the time and pay for studio time with us, and we sit there and tell them, hey, look, you pitchy right here or whatever, and that's the production side of it. But
Melodyne.
Yeah, but
that's a thing.
It's to let them know. It's to let them know that, hey, look, we're not dogging you out for, we're letting you know that we're hearing this, we're seeing this, and we want to help you be better than what you are, because we're always striving to be better than what we are.
Yeah.
And so we do that as a whole collaborative creative team. That's unstoppable, man. Like, the power that we have on the bayou with the things that we're doing can't be stopped by any entity.
And you know what else is fascinating too?
That's very cool.
This right here, whenever you have someone who is leagues above your threshold of talent, you don't necessarily feel like you can learn something from them, because they're so much better than you, or where you're at, or the audience is at. It's hard to identify with that creator because they feel like they're so far advanced from you. But when you have someone who's really good, not the best in the world, I feel like you can learn from that type of person so much better and relate to them in a much better way to get better with them. So it's almost like the sense of community is already built in, because they're not just miles ahead in skill level. And that's honestly something that I look for personally whenever I'm trying to learn a new thing, because if I'm watching videos on producing audio and this guy is just like, 20, 30 years into it, it's really hard to relate to that person, because they're just kind of going lightning speed round type stuff. Like, you should know this already. Whereas if I'm watching someone who's like 5 years into it and just is naturally a good storyteller or explaining what they do very fluidly, it helps so much more that I feel like I'm on the same level with them. So I could understand how you were saying where you could produce a better piece of artwork if you didn't have the production around you or the time constraint, but it actually lets people know that it's okay to not be the best, and that inspires a lot of people to keep pushing forward.
But it should also signal people to understand that there was a time in my life where, just like you, TNu, there was a point where I would look at other musicians that weren't as good as what I was, or whatever, what I thought I was good, and I was wrong for looking at them that way and thinking anything wrong of them. Instead, I opened up my mind now as I'm older And you know, you can feel regret for the way you've felt and done things in life.
But not too much.
It don't get you nowhere, though.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't get you any step further in life. But it's okay to be inspired by other people. It's okay to be awed. Tyler is one of the best guitarists I know. And we went to see a show.
Oh, yeah? Can you play a bar chord?
Oh, man. He
I
even
can play
played
a chord at a bar, too.
Yeah.
Dang.
And a barred chord.
But just last weekend, we went to see a couple bands at a local club in Houma, Louisiana.
Amazing.
And his mind was blown.
What's their name?
It was actually 3 bands. It was Wasted Creation from Lafayette. I think they're from Lafayette, right?
Wasted Creation, New Orleans.
New Orleans. Arbor Mort, which was,
Lafayette.
I love them. They're from Lafayette. And our local band from Houma, Smoke. And they play heavy metal music there. But
Not his lane, totally mine, but the appreciation for the art
awesome
form,
because
amazing.
these guys were in sync. I mean, and just to see that, and I just want to urge people out there. I don't care how old or young you are. Artistically open up your minds and your hearts to be inspired by others and draw off of that. Don't think because they're doing something that you think is more awesome than what you're doing. Don't let that deter you and put you into a dark place. Let it inspire you to be better and to push through and push past that wall that's in front of you in order to be greater than what things actually seem to be.
Amen.
Yeah, people, and that's so beautifully put, because it's so important that, like, especially for people who are just starting or people who are unsure of themselves, and that basically what you have to do is realize that you are 100% unique. No matter what, like, you can try to copy someone else, and if you do that, you won't be happy. You know, like, something's gonna tell you inside that it's wrong, and you need to listen to that. But at the same time, you have to start out with an emulation of something. Everybody, they use the phrase, "You stand on the shoulders of giants," and that's true of every art form. And you know, we mentioned CrafsMan earlier, and like, I have been 100% influenced by this guy. Because in my mind, he made a new genre of something, and when I saw his stuff, I was like, man, this is so awesome. This guy did something that I have not been able to put together in my mind, which is, he does all these things, he builds all these things. I build all kind of things. I love all these little, like, toys, and then he can do film work and sound. I do film work and sound. And then it started coming together to where I was like, okay, but I can't just, like, copy him. Like, he's made a whole new thing. But at the same time, the first band that came up with rock and roll, well, if everyone said, well, we can't do that, that's off the table, let's make up we would be nowhere. We wouldn't have all these amazing bands, one rock band, one jazz band, one horror movie, one, you know.
Right.
So don't be afraid to emulate something at first, but just listen to that little thing inside of you that's pulling you, that's gonna, if you listen to that thing, you will absolutely make something that is unique to the world. And if you listen to it well, the world is gonna recognize it. At least that's how I feel.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. It's time to give it hell on Saturday, July 31st. Join Gnarly Barley and Dan Mary for the release party of Give It Hellas Lager.
Live music by Pale Shelter, Eat the Witch, and Sunrise Sunset. Beer flows at noon and music starts at 3 p.m. Food by Fat Jose. So join Gnarly Barley, Daniel Mary, and the Dank Swamp Rebellion
at Gnarly Brewing Company, 1709 Corbin Road, Hammond, Louisiana. So let's give it hell.
Thanks for tuning in to DSR. Come back Wednesday for part 3 with TNu. And make sure you head over to YouTube and check out Cajun Craftastrophe.